Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hello, welcome back to Unbound. I'm Beth Curry. Today's chapter is called The Last Christmas, and it's about the holiday that finally broke me. Our first Christmas without Dad was hard. The second one, though, when I brought Mom home and everything fell apart, that was devastating. This chapter is about learning that sometimes love means letting traditions die, even when it feels like failure and even when it breaks your heart. This is chapter 16 in the book, The Last Christmas. Some endings arrive with the drama of a slammed door, sudden, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. Others come quietly, less like endings and more like gradual recognitions that what once was can no longer be sustained. This is a story about the latter, about the Christmas that finally taught me that sometimes love means letting traditions die so that new ones might eventually take their place. In 2006, I decided to take over Christmas breakfast, a tradition that wasn't just about food, but about creating for crew the kind of magical holiday memories I had been fortunate enough to experience growing up. We had just moved into our newer, bigger home 2 weeks earlier, giving us the space to host properly. What began as a relatively small gathering, 8 people crowded around our table that first year, evolved over time. Some years we stretched to accommodate 18 family members and friends, the house filled with laughter, conversation, and that special kind of chaos that comes from having too many people in too small a space. But it was perfect. Our table wasn't reserved solely for family. The door was always open to those who needed a place to belong during the holidays, friends who might otherwise have been alone, colleagues whose families lived too far away to visit, neighbors who had become extensions of our family circle. Somehow, we always made room, both physically and emotionally, for whoever needed to be included. Dad loved Christmas with his whole heart. He wasn't a demonstrative man generally, but the holidays brought out a side of him that was all warmth and gentle joy. He would sometimes arrive early to help with the preparations, offering commentary and occasionally useful assistance while I finished up last-minute cooking. He delighted in watching crew open gifts and the silly Christmas crackers and paper crowns, in the sense of continuity that comes from family traditions maintained across generations. 2023 tested me in ways I wasn't prepared for. It was our first Christmas without Dad, and every decoration, every tradition, every moment felt like both a tribute to him and a reminder of his absence. By then, Mom had been a couple of months into a long-term care facility, and I wanted desperately to give her a touch of normalcy by bringing her back home, back to a home filled with familiar faces and memories. It had been hard watching her in care. Even though we knew it's where she needed to be, it breaks my heart knowing how much she hates it. These visits home are everything to her. She had been talking about Christmas 2024 since October, her eyes lighting up at the mere mention of coming home. Every regular visit would end the same way, with her wanting to stay, to be surrounded by the family and friends who gave her life such vibrancy before everything changed. The anticipation had built for weeks. We cleaned the house with extra care, prepared some favorite foods, set her usual place. We had discussed logistics extensively for getting her to us and back again. Everything was in place for what I hoped would be a beautiful, if bittersweet, continuation of our family tradition. That day, though, reality hit hard. When we brought her home, it was immediately clear something wasn't right. Her mind wasn't in a good place, and her physical health seemed more fragile than it had been even days before. As the morning progressed, it became increasingly apparent that we, loving family members but not professional caregivers, didn't have the training or resources that she needed. What should have been a day of celebration became an exercise in anxiety management, both hers and ours. Having to cut the day short to get her back to medical care was devastating, but her reaction, that's what broke me. As we gathered her things, explaining as gently as possible that we needed to take her back to Willow Grove, her face crumpled with grief and confusion. "I want to be with my family," she kept saying, her voice rising with distress. "I want to be here. When I go there, what will I do?" Some of the others tried to comfort me afterward. She'll forget, they insisted. She won't remember this upset by tomorrow. But I know better. I've watched how memory works in dementia, the strange selectivity of what remains and what fades. Emotional memories often persist, even when the factual ones disappear. This is something I know she remembers deep down somewhere inside of her, the happiness and joy that being in our home brings her, and we took it away. I tried to hold it together for everyone else, to keep playing host while my heart was shattering. But something broke in me that day. I realized I just can't do this anymore. Next year will have to be different. I feel like I've failed both my parents somehow, but the truth is, my Christmas died with Dad. And I've tried for 2 years to keep his spirit alive through these gatherings, but it's just too exhausting. I can't do it anymore. This experience, painful as it was, taught me several important lessons about navigating holidays when a loved one has dementia. For those facing similar challenges, I offer these reflections not as an expert, but as someone who has learned the hard way what works and what doesn't. Practical considerations for holiday gatherings with dementia. 1. Recognize that what worked before may not work now. Dementia is a progressive condition, which means that the accommodations that were sufficient last month or last year may no longer meet your loved one's needs. The mother who could happily participate in a large family gathering 6 months ago might now become overwhelmed by the same environment. The father who could manage a full day away from his care facility last Christmas might now need a much shorter outing. The constant evolution requires ongoing reassessment and flexibility. Before planning any holiday gathering, consider your loved one's current abilities and limitations, not what they could handle during the last special occasion. Consult with their regular caregivers about recent changes or challenges. Be realistic about what's possible right now, even if that means scaling back from what you've done in the past. 2. Create a dementia-friendly environment. If you do bring your loved one home for a holiday gathering, make simple adjustments to create a more dementia-friendly environment. Designate a quiet space where they can retreat if overstimulated. Keep background noise to a minimum. Consider turning off the TV and lowering music volume. Use consistent, adequate lighting to reduce confusing shadows. Remove unnecessary clutter and potential hazards. Consider placing signs on bathroom doors and other important locations. Have familiar objects or photos easily visible. Maintain a consistent temperature, as people with dementia may not communicate discomfort effectively. These environmental modifications can significantly reduce anxiety and confusion, making the experience more pleasant for everyone involved. 3. Timing is everything. Many people with dementia experience sundowning, increased confusion and agitation in the late afternoon and evening. Schedule important activities earlier in the day when your loved one is likely to be at their best. Consider shorter gatherings rather than all-day events. A 2-hour lunch might be more successful than a traditional 6-hour Christmas celebration. Quality of interaction matters more than quantity of time. Also think about medication timing, working with care facility staff to ensure that medications are appropriately scheduled around your plans, and be prepared to administer them yourself if the visit spans dosage times. 4. Prepare other guests. Family members and friends who see your loved one infrequently may be shocked or uncomfortable with the changes dementia has caused. Before the gathering, have private conversations with guests to update them on your loved one's current condition. Suggest effective communication strategies. Explain behaviors they may witness. Answer questions they might be hesitant to ask. And assign specific roles that allow them to help in meaningful ways. These conversations reduce anxiety for everyone and create a more supportive atmosphere. They also minimize the likelihood of well-intentioned but harmful comments like, "Don't you remember me?" or "We just talked about that." 5. Have a backup plan. Despite the most careful planning, things may not go as expected. Your loved one might become distressed, unwell, or simply have a difficult day. Having a clear backup plan provides peace of mind and practical direction when challenges arise. Consider who will take your loved one back to their care facility if needed. Is there a quiet room where they can rest if they become overwhelmed but don't need to leave? Can you have a familiar caregiver on call for advice if challenging behaviors emerge? Are important phone numbers readily accessible, such as care facility, doctor, or pharmacy? Having these contingencies in place allows you to respond calmly rather than reactively if the gathering doesn't proceed as hoped. 6. Adjust your expectations and everyone else's. Perhaps the most difficult but important adjustment involves expectations. The perfect family Christmas you remember from years past may no longer be possible. Accepting this reality isn't giving up, it's making space for new ways of connecting that accommodate current circumstances. Be explicit with family members about these adjusted expectations. Explain that visits might be shorter, that traditional activities might need modification, that the primary goal is comfort and connection, rather than maintaining every aspect of past celebrations. This reset of expectations extends to your loved ones as well. Clear, simple communication about what will happen, when it will end, and what comes next can reduce anxiety, even if the information isn't fully retained. 7. Consider alternatives to home visits. Sometimes bringing your loved one home isn't the best option, particularly if their condition has advanced significantly. Rather than abandoning holiday celebrations entirely, consider alternatives. Celebrate at the care facility, bringing elements of home traditions to them. Arrange for a private dining room at the facility for a family meal. Create a rolling holiday with small groups visiting throughout the day rather than one large gathering. Use technology for brief virtual connections with distant family members. Adapt celebrations to the time of day when your loved one is most alert and comfortable. These alternatives acknowledge current limitations while preserving the essential purpose of holiday gatherings, connection and love. 8. Honor grief and practice self-care. Holiday traditions carry powerful emotional associations. When dementia disrupts these traditions, the result isn't just logistical challenge, but profound grief. Grief for the person who's still physically present but unable to participate as they once did. Grief for family experiences that can no longer continue in familiar forms. This grief deserves acknowledgement. Give yourself permission to feel sad about what's been lost. Talk with understanding friends, join a support group, or work with a therapist who specializes in caregiving challenges. Consider creating private rituals that honor your memories while making space for current realities. Self-care isn't selfish during this process, it's essential. You cannot support your loved one effectively if you're depleted physically and emotionally. Set boundaries around what you can reasonably manage. Accept help when it's offered. Find small ways to preserve joy in the season, even amid the changes and challenges. 9, remember what truly matters. At its core, a holiday celebration is about expressing love and maintaining connection. While traditional expressions of these values, elaborate meals, gift exchanges, large gatherings, may no longer be feasible, the underlying purpose remains accessible even as dementia progresses. Sometimes connection happens through the simple presence rather than conversation. Sometimes love is expressed through holding a hand rather than giving a gift. Sometimes what matters most isn't recreating past celebrations, but creating moments of peace and joy in the present, however modest these might seem compared to holidays remembered. The Christmas when I realized our traditional gatherings no longer worked for Mom marked both an ending and a beginning. The end of one way of celebrating together, but also the start of a more honest assessment of what's truly possible and meaningful in our current circumstances. I still grieve for the Christmas breakfasts of years past, for Dad's presence at the counter while I cooked, for Mom's delight in having everyone gathered in one place. I still feel the sting of perceived failure when I think about her distress as we took her back to Willow Grove earlier than planned. But I'm also beginning to recognize that adapting to changing realities isn't failure. It's the most profound expression of love available to us when dementia reshapes family life. Next Christmas will look different. It might involve smaller gatherings at Willow Grove rather than bringing Mom to our home. It might include new traditions that accommodate her current capabilities rather than expecting her to fit into celebrations designed for her past self. It will likely see me traveling instead, since Mom doesn't know the difference between actual Christmas Day and another day around then when I can see her. It will certainly involve more realistic expectations about what's possible and what's kind, both for her and for ourselves. What hasn't changed? What will never change is the love that prompted those Christmas traditions in the first place. That remains constant even as its expressions evolve. Perhaps the most important lesson dementia has to teach. What I keep repeating, that love transcends the particular forms it takes, finding new pathways when familiar ones become impassable. The last Christmas as we knew it has passed, but love remains, seeking new ways to express itself within the constraints and possibilities of our current reality. In that seeking, in that adaptation, love proves itself both resilient and creative, capable of finding meaning even when beloved traditions must be released. So in 2024, I had this vision of bringing mom home for Christmas and giving her that taste of normalcy and surrounding her with family and familiar faces. And she was talking about it for months, and her eyes would light up every time we mentioned it. But, when we got her there, it just wasn't good. Her mind was in a bad place, and she was complaining of pain in her stomach. And, we're loving family members, but we're not trained caregivers, and ultimately couldn't give her what she needed. And it wrecked me, having to cut the day short. It just made everything, the air in the house changed, and it just it just ruined. I hate using that word, but I can still feel it. I can still feel how I felt in that moment. All the work that I had put into all of it, and it just ended, and everybody left. It was very depressing for me. My Christmas, like I said, it died with Dad, and I've been trying for 2 years to keep his spirit alive. Without Dad around, it feels like extra work. It was always work, and I didn't mind doing it. It was my gift to my family and my friends, right? But now it just feels like work, like exhausting, heartbreaking work, and trying to force Mom into that doesn't really honor her, So writing the chapter, as I was even writing it, I was acknowledging things, and I was kind of reassuring myself, it's okay. Change is okay. Change is good. It's going to be okay. So, don't worry about what Christmas 2025 looks like. We haven't fully decided yet what's going to happen. I don't know that I will even be around for Christmas in Canada or at home. I haven't quite worked out the logistics of that yet. I don't know what's going to happen. But hopefully whatever we do, and even if it then remains the same year over year, it's just new traditions, right? And it's okay for those to change. Next episode, I'll continue on, hopefully with happier chapters. I know I have a few funny chapters coming up. I just want to say, if you have had similar challenges with holiday traditions and dementia, I would love to hear from you. I'm wondering what's worked for you, what you've learned. You can email me at unboundwithbethcurry@gmail.com. You can join the Facebook group, start up a post there, or comment on the episode post. And if you want to support the show, the information is in the show notes, as well as all that contact information. I just want to thank you again for being here, and for listening to my ramblings. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit author.bethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.